And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We're here with Sydney from Scarves and Spikes to talk about Atlanta United and the 2024 season. Sydney, how you doing?
Hey guys, doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to chat Atlanta today. I know one of us more than the other. My co-host here will tell you a little bit why. Connor, how you doing?
I am so excited for this episode. This is, I think, our first time that we've ever had someone else on the podcast that's an Atlanta fan. So I am stoked to finally have the advantage in the numbers against Andrew.
Nice. There you go. So it's all about, right?
Yeah, we'll see. I can be pretty opinionated and strong in
Yeah.
my thoughts. Of course, we're here to talk all about the moves from the offseason, in, out, players who might break out, the overlying question for the season, and of course, predicting where they finish, because you can't have a preseason preview without predictions, right? But before we do any of that, of course, we are going into Scarf of the Week. Sydney, I don't know if you've got a scarf with you handy.
I do actually. So obviously Sunday, I don't know if you guys watched the announcement show. It was a train wreck. So if you didn't watch it, you didn't miss much. But they announced the match schedules for the World Cup, and of course Atlanta is in the mix, hosting 5 group stage matches, round of 32, round of 16, and then the semifinal 2016. So I have my American Outlaw scarf here just to kind of commemorate the occasion. Atlanta obviously on the rise as a soccer city, of course, with Atlanta United, but now with U.S. Soccer setting up shop, Metro Atlanta, south of town. U.S. men's national team coming here for the first time in a while. U.S. men's national team playing in the She Believes Cup for Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Copa America coming up, potentially Club World Cup next year, World Cup 2016, and if U.S. Canada win the bid, potentially, I would imagine Atlanta would be included as a host for the Women's World Cup then. So exciting times from a soccer standpoint here in Atlanta, not just on the American soccer stage, but for the world soccer stage. So gotta rep the American Outlaws as a result.
Absolutely love that. Such a great design, great looking scarf.
I can't take credit for the design, by the way, but
but you can take credit for that excitement, man. That is
yeah.
definitely something that is a really it must be a really fun time down there.
No, absolutely. I moved here toward the end of 2015, so Atlanta United was really an idea. The name wasn't known. All we knew that was that Atlanta would get an MLS team. So just the excitement building up to that, and being in the stadium, covering the match against the New York Rebels in 2017 was incredible. And then just seeing again Atlanta finding itself in the world football discussion in really just a matter of a few years, right? Soccer had already had a presence here in Atlanta with the Atlanta Chiefs, which was the previous professional soccer team in the NASL, the first top flight soccer team that played before the NASL folded. So Atlanta United, there were some skeptics around that. Would soccer work in the South and all that? And needless to say, it's worked and then some. So really exciting times, not just with Atlanta United here coming into 2024, but from a global standpoint, as I mentioned.
Yeah, super cool. Connor, what do you got?
I had a few Atlanta scarves to choose from, but I'm picking one that I very much like, and it was at the bottom of my list, so it's probably been a while since I brought it out. But I've got my white and gold Atlanta United
There you go.
scarf. I
Nice.
just think these colors are awesome. Plus,
Very
I really
nice.
like this little, like, I know it's not the typical logo, but the A with the spike through it, I think it's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice choice.
I also, I don't know why, but for some reason I've got an Atlanta scarf too. Unfortunately, it commemorates one of the worst meltdowns in Red Bull history. So for you guys specifically, I brought it out, but I also made sure I rep the team that you guys have only beaten once in 7 regular seasons.
Beat you when it counted.
Yeah. So and we could also argue that maybe you took your red and black stripes from our predecessors. Metro Star. We can go down all of that, but we don't want to do that because we've got a little bit of a time crunch here. So I think we should dive right into some of the moves that this Atlanta United team has made. Let's talk first where we're at. Gonzalo Pineda takes over his 3rd full season in charge of Atlanta United. Last year, 6th in the East, 10th overall, 51 points, 13 wins, 9 losses, 12 draws, lost to Columbus in the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs. The question I want to ask, what was the best addition they've made so far?
So far, I think the midfield, ever since Darlington Nagbe left, right, they've been trying to get the midfield right, try to get a player there that could really fit the match. They had a Tristan Muyumba from Ligue 1 in France last year, and he made an immediate impact, but there isn't that player, that partner there that could really affect the match on a consistent basis. And I think a player that could I think a player that could affect the match in a positive manner and that other midfield slot is Bartosz Slisz coming over from Ligue 2 as well. Or I'm sorry, not Ligue 2, but the Polish League Ekstraklasa with Legia Warsaw. Really got rave reviews for what he did with Legia Warsaw from his time in Poland. As a Polish international player, has played several matches with the national team there. I'll admit I hadn't seen a ton of his tape before he came in, but it was just watching and reading about him and hearing what Polish football fans, their opinions of him, and seeing on social media how they're disappointed that he'd be leaving for MLS. It's encouraging. Atlanta haven't really had that force in the midfield, like I said, since Darlington Nagbe left for Columbus, and you see what an impact Darlington Nagbe has had on MLS. Garth Lagerwey has mentioned numerous times that the club really want to make significant additions around the spine of the team, across the spine of the team. Miles Robinson left for FC Cincinnati, a multiple-year deal. There's some players in the midfield that haven't really worked out to some extent. Santiago Sosa, who had some success in the midfield, is gone. Franco Ibarra is gone. And again, that spine of the team was really lacking from a defensive standpoint. I think Slisz is going to be the player that this team has been looking for in that midfield spot next to Tristan Muyumba. I don't think he'll be maybe quite the level as Darlington Nagbe is because Nagbe set a high bar for himself, right? But I think Slisz, with some time, will be able to fit right into this roster, fit right into this club, and really make an impact in that midfield. So that's what I'm looking at. I can name also Stian Gregerson, who is supposed to be Miles Robinson's replacement, Dax McCarty, who Andrew, you know all about, MLS veteran. So I could have named any of those other players, but I think Bartosz Slisz is going to be a big, big part of what this team does in 2024, a big, big part of its success or lack thereof in 2024.
It's a great shout, and I'm sure we'll hit on that a little bit more later, and maybe Connor will fill up and follow you up in agreement. Connor, what are you thinking?
I have a tear in my eye for the validation that I just felt right now because that last segment was like word for word what I have in my notes for best edition, literally down to the mention of Nagbe.
Yeah.
I feel like for the last few years, basically ever since Nagbe left, that we've just had this hole in the midfield every year. And I think we've had decent players in the midfield, but just not something enough there to kind of get it done. And I think Slisz is I think he could be that answer. You know, he's coming over from Poland, which isn't one of the best leagues in the world, but while he was there, he was on one of the best teams and he was one of the best players on that team. So I think he should still easily be able to at least be up to MLS level, if not even better. And I'm super excited to see what he brings to the team, even though, in my opinion, and I think you mentioned this as well, he's probably not a Nagbe type of player, so not exactly filling the Nagbe sized hole in the team, but I still think it covers a lot of ground there that we've been lacking for so many years.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild you think that he's anywhere clear of King Dax, but that's okay.
Yeah, we got both of them. So.
Exactly.
For me, I was a goalkeeper. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for my goalkeepers, especially when Guzan last season was statistically one of the worst goalkeepers in the league.
Yeah.
And you can point to his inabilities as one of the reasons that you didn't go as far as you might have or finish as high as you could have. So for me, and it might not even be the biggest impact addition, but I think the most excitement for me was when I saw Josh Cohen got announced. I mean, there was obviously that whole question mark around the first time where he almost sued the team or the league, where this whole thing happened. You're like, okay, Cohen's gone. Next, oh boom, he's coming on in. Really good experience, kind of the stereotypical American goalkeeper, makes his way up the rings, goes overseas, has success, and now is coming back. I would assume that he's going to still take over that number one spot. And that's a big assumption, I think, but I think it's nice from from my neutral point to say, hey, there's a hole in this team, and one of the first things you did in your transfer window was fix that hole. So that's why for me it's the best, and it shows the front office is paying attention, which was nice.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the main storylines of preseason, right? Is it going to be Guzan? Is it going to be Cohen at a goalkeeper one slot for Atlanta United? I'm kind of leaning toward, at this point, maybe Guzan gets it. That being said, that's not to say that Cohen may not have us strong places on his team. If at the very least, is as a cup goalkeeper, if he starts in spots throughout the regular season just to relieve Guzan. I think eventually Cohen will be the number one keeper, but I think if you fast forward to February 25th against the Crew, I wouldn't be surprised to see Brad Guzan out there as the starting keeper. Could that change based on preseason performances? Absolutely, but I feel like it's Guzan for now, but I feel like that situation is still very fluid.
Sure, and it also shows that you're planning for the future too, right? Like when Guzan can't play forever, and when he is ready to go, it's next guy's up, ready to go. You're not looking for it already, which was nice. But I did want to ask you as well. We've had a couple of players depart the team, and you mentioned a lot of them already. Which one do you think is going to, you're going to feel the most in this group?
Yeah, without a doubt, you probably know where I'm going already. Miles Robinson, just a player that he went from a super draft pick to a best 11 center back. Obviously, with the injury he suffered, fighting back from that, credit to him. But at the same time, it's undoubtedly, or it's beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he is a different player than he was before his Achilles. He was still a very strong defender. He is still one of the top center backs in MLS, if not one of the top defenders in MLS as a whole. But the Achilles and the situation with that just affected him in the not super noticeably, but subtle enough where you can see, okay, this guy's form before he got hurt is much different than he was after he got hurt. What the situation is with the contract, I don't know specifically. I know Atlanta did want to offer him a designated player contract, which I totally agree with. I don't think he's the type of player that you would offer a DP slot, especially considering A, his injury, and then B, you want to use that for maybe an attacker or a midfielder for the future. So I totally agree with the club stance there. At the same time, it feels like he wanted to go to a new chapter, a new location. And he mentioned the grass, being a part of why he left. And, that's kind of been like the undercurrent that's been discussed about Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Beautiful ground, one of the top grounds in really world football as a whole, but, it's a turf field. And that's been a real sticking point for a lot of fans. So he'll be missed. He'll always be an Atlanta United player at heart. But I think from a defensive standpoint, it's going to be a big hole to fill, and it puts a lot of pressure on Gregerson to at least come close to filling the hole that Robinson will leave and has left on this team.
Connor, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I went Miles Robinson as well. It's almost sentimental, the pick, because I still remember, like Sydney was saying, when he was drafted out of Syracuse, I believe. And I remember him being described as a little bit of a raw talent, but super like physically gifted center back. And then I still remember him like kind of slowly getting his minutes in the team. And then all of a sudden he was a regular starter. And He's in the national team, and honestly, he probably would have been in the World Cup had it not been for the injury. So
100%. Yeah.
it's crazy to see someone that we drafted grow to that extent. It's hard to see him leave, but I get it from all perspectives. If he wants to, look to play somewhere new, and if it's the turf part of it that's part of the reason to leave, then I get that as well. And I get it from Atlanta's perspective too. I'm right on board. I don't think we should be using that on sorry. I don't think we should be using a designated player spot on a center back personally, especially because we went and got Gregerson, who I think could be maybe just as good. I mean, it's hard to compare to Miles Robinson when we haven't seen Gregerson play in the league at all, but he looks really good, and he's not on a designated player deal. And the team seems to prefer to use that in attacking positions, which I like as well. It's more exciting, more fun. So I get it from all regards, but definitely still hurts to see him go.
I would agree with you there, but I think we would be remiss not to mention his center back partner, who also isn't coming back, in Juanjo Purata. And you could make the argument, and you need more stats and time, but you can make the argument he was equally as important, if not more important, than Miles Robinson in certain moments and times. He was massive when he had to fill in for the injured Miles Robinson. He gave you really, really good attacking returns as well, and he kind of balanced the ship almost. So I think, yeah, bringing Gregerson in is going to be great to replace one of them. Not bringing in, or still missing both of them is going to, I think it's being overlooked because Miles Robinson was such a big thing that Purata is also going to be a really, really big miss for you guys. I mean, you can put prime me in goal if you wanted, and even with a reliable center back, you're not gonna be successful, right? I also need we're contractually obligated to shout out everybody's on this podcast favorite player, Machop Chol, who did a really good run out, and our friend Adam, who doesn't do the pod with us anymore, he was his favorite player. So in sentimental world.
Yeah.
Still need to find that Machop Chol scarf. That was one of the best scarves I've ever seen.
Yeah, somebody had to have made that from themselves, and it was sick.
Yeah,
yeah, we're gonna miss Chop. Hope he left us out in a good situation. He has a good future ahead of him. So
yeah, sure hope so. His brother is actually playing with a bunch of kids I tried recruiting to Alfred at Queens College, which is
fun.
Oh
yeah,
nice. Yeah. So nice. I'm looking like, who's Chol? That's really funny. Oh, yeah. It's his brother. Sick. Machop Chol was somebody that we always had our eye on as maybe a person that is going to take the next step, and it never quite happened. But in this season, who do you think might be that player to make that big step this
year? For me, I think Caleb Wiley, based on the expectations that have been placed on him as a young player, a player that will most likely be in the Olympics in the summer with the U.S. Olympic team, a player that his profile stands to grow even more than it has right now. He had a terrific season last year. Kind of had a quote unquote breakout game against Charlotte FC away that I was covering. So it was great to see him perform in that form and fashion, and just settled in as a reliable starter at the left back, at that left side for Atlanta United. Still has some growing up to do from a talent standpoint. He's still young, and he still is getting his legs underneath him as an MLS player. It's not to say he's a bad player, but there's still some rough edges that need to be sanded out. But I think with some time and even more playing time on the field, he'll really stand to increase his profile with Atlanta United. Don't know if he necessarily is going to be able to make that jump to Europe in the next couple of years. I think Atlanta United would be best served to kind of hold him in the system for a little bit longer. I feel like they tend to maybe not hold on to players, especially young players, as long as they should. George Bell is one example. And granted, I don't think Atlanta could have predicted everything that happened with Bella and the clubs he played for, but I feel like with a little more time, maybe half the season, another season, he'll have gotten himself in a much better situation. But that's neither here nor there. With Wiley, I think it's a chance for them to say, hey, we want to invest in the talent that we have rather than looking to buy low and sell high. Granted, Wiley isn't, of course, an acquisition. He's been with them for years, and you're just youth system all the way up to their senior team. But yeah, I think he can stand to stick around a little bit longer with Atlanta United and potentially play his way to a extended contract if he builds on the season they had in 2023. So it's Caleb Wiley for me. I thought about saying Tyler Wolf. Wolf's another one that I think, from the standpoint of a player that can consistently affect the first team and the starting 11, I think it's definitely Wiley.
I think you had a lot of really good fair points there. Connor, you want to share your thoughts?
I think people underrate the Atlanta ability to grow talent here. I think people look at the signings and they look at Yosef, Miggy, Barco Almada, and they're like, okay, Atlanta brings in a lot of talent, but they're not like as known as like a Philly or a Dallas of like building talent from their academy or building talent through draft picks. But I think it's just a wrong take on them. I mean, Bello, Wiley, Robinson, you have um Tyler Wolf on the team as well. Noah Cobb, I think, is a name as well to keep an eye on. Ephraim Morales as well. I mean, there's tons of guys in this team that I think have really good futures. Tons of guys who have already kind of built on their futures and got their moves away. But I'm going to go with a name that I think maybe even some people in the Atlanta camp don't know that much right now. Although if they're paying attention to preseason, they may know who he is. But I'm going to go with Nick Firmino.
Yeah, good one.
So I think the spot behind Almada is a little bit up for grabs right now. If we're talking about just, I guess, natural number 10s, transfer market technically has nobody behind Almada, but I think Firmino kind of more so suits that role than the way he's classified as a center mid on there. Um, so I think he could be that guy behind Almada to come in and take some minutes off of him, or if it comes around to the summer and Almada's gone, if Firmino does a good job with the minutes that he gets, I mean, I'm not necessarily against him getting some more time there, more starter type role for him. Um, in MLS Next Pro last season, he absolutely balled out. He had 16 goals and 6 assists. So I think the quality is 100% there. And I think if he gets the opportunity for minutes, I think he can turn some heads for sure.
Honor right with the sleeper pick. Good for you. way to not take the low hanging fruit. Boy. Because I did take the low hanging fruit. Gutman's gone. Nobody really else came in to take left back. It's Caleb Wiley season, right? He lit the world on fire for a hot minute in 2023, came back down to earth. Can he find that middle ground to be more consistent so that people aren't just looking and then forgetting? Can they keep an eye on him and say, okay, this guy, we know this is his floor. He can get better, but he should never drop below it. And that's what I think needs to come from him. But yeah, very excited to watch him and see if he can, because I think he benefits from now having one set position. I mean, they were moving him up and down that flank in different shapes and with different players behind him and in front of him. Now he knows that theoretically, this is my spot. I am a left wing back. This is my role. This is my responsibility. This is how I'm going to play the game. And he gets to build upon that without having to worry about, okay, where am I supposed to be now? Do I need to track back? Do I need to be higher? He can just do it, which I'm excited to see. Now, the one question I have for you is, what is your one question? So you're looking at this season, and what's the one question you've still got, or that you're keeping an eye on as the season progresses?
Yeah, what will this team's psyche be in 2024? This team just over the past couple of years, and last year especially, just had an alarming propensity to allow goals at the most inopportune times. And if you look at this team, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 of those matches had seen them maintain winning positions, they'd have been probably a top 4 team at the very worst. That just goes to show just the mentality of this team, and the propensity to shut off, propensity to make, really, to be blunt, just silly and stupid mistakes when it really matters. And it was just frustrating for the fans. It was frustrating for us who cover the team. to watch just time and time again. Yeah, asking Pineda, hey, what needs to change? And the Pineda essentially saying, we just need to work at it. We just need to focus on it in training. And, that's all well and good, but the fruit wasn't really being manifested the way that it was meant to be manifested. And again, it's just frustrating to watch. They did get a little better at it later in the season, especially after the new signings came in, Muyumba, Lubjanitsa, TRA. When those guys came in, or Silva after that too, when those guys came in, this is a much different team. And yeah, Yakimakis in there who almost won Golden Boot, who was extremely fatigued and didn't have a preseason and barely had a break between when he was with his kind of premiership with Celtic and when he came over here. So I think with those players going through their first preseasons with Atlanta United, the players I just mentioned, with a new midfielder, with a new central defender, and all of that, I feel like this team should be much better at protecting these nursing leads. That being said, that's without having seen them play a match that counts yet. We can only take so much from preseason. At this rate, Inter Miami is going to be bottom of the table. But yeah, I'm just kind of making a point that, it's tough to draw too much from preseason. You can see things you like, you can see things that you don't like, but Pineda said it in a press availability, media availability a few days ago. It's all about getting that mentality, because if you don't do it now, it's going to hurt you in the regular season. So that's my big question for Atlanta United more than anything else. We know they have the attacking talent. They have Thiago Almada, who is at worst top 3 MLS on his day, on his best day, and maybe on his worst day as well. We know what he's capable of. We know what Yakamaka is capable of. Saba, Shande in that attack. William Bott to some extent in that midfield. How is this team psyche going to be? If they face adversity, are they going to crumble or are they going to rise to the occasion? I think that's my biggest question. If they can do it, if they can improve on it, this team will be very tough to beat in 2024 and could be a team that pushes for MLS Cup. I'm not going to say they'll win it, but they can really push, make a legitimate push for MLS Cup.
A very interesting approach there. And I like your viewpoint on it. Connor, your thoughts?
My question to keep an eye on for this year is what happens if Thiago Almada leaves in the summer. So I think a lot of people were expecting that he might make the move in this winter. Ultimately, nobody met Atlanta's valuation, and I'm glad the team stuck to what they value him at. Didn't cave just to kind of move him on already. So I would say very likely chance he moves on in the summer. That is the time period where the teams in Europe spend most of their money. So I think there's a good chance that someone will spend the money to bring him in. So what does the team look like after that? We know how much Almada means to the team. And quite frankly, I didn't even know if this team is a playoff team without him last year. He was unbelievably good. There's a reason he was an MVP finalist. I expect that he will be just as good this first half of the season. While he's still here. So I wonder, will the team have a huge drop off if he's gone? Will they have to change the way that they play their game? So I'm really interested to see how the team reacts if he's gone in the summer.
Yeah.
My question is, why do you keep stealing my content? Because that was pretty much word for word what I have. So I'll change it. I'll change it to, how will the fan base react when Red Bull wipe the floor? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, boo! Get him out of here.
Well, no, mine is the same thing. What happens when Almada leaves? Right, our boy Tommy Scoops comes on and he says, mid-season, that's when the big moves come in MLS. So if that happens, who's going to step up with obviously Giacomakis, who seems to score every time he takes a breath, to keep this team punching in an area that they should be. So we've already kind of hit it. So let's go ahead and finish up with our favorite part. On the last day of the season, decision day is over. Where is Atlanta United finishing in the Eastern Conference table?
This club talks a lot about, we want to be in the top 4 spot. We want to have home field advantage in the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs. And I think that based on the talent that's on this team based on, and that's not to mention Almada, and this is assuming Almada is gone mid-season, by the way. This is assuming that. I think, yeah, even with the talent on this team, I think with just the improved makeup, I think with just the hopefully improved mentality that this team will have, I think fourth place would be very achievable. That's not to say the East won't stay the same as it is. I mean, Columbus is the team everybody's chasing, right? As the defending champions. Philadelphia, you would think they'd be up there. Cincinnati, you'd think they'd be up there. Even without Brandon Vasquez, South Lucho Costa, defending MVP. So they'll have that. They'll have Miles Robinson. There's so many good teams in the East. Orlando, I'll add another one. So a lot of that is depending on how they do. But I think Atlanta United, as it's made up right now, can really be a team that can stick it to these teams, gather points when it matters, hold on to leads, and get yourself in a good position by the time the season ends. Again, this is even assuming Almada's gone in the summer, after which case you would hope that the club already has a plan. They already know who they're going to target, who they could bring in once Almada leaves. But I think I'm going to say fourth again because I don't think this team is quite able to be at the very top of the East. I don't think this will be a team that will win the Shield or anything like that, but it's going to be much improved from last year. It has to be much improved from last year. Where I think Pineda will not be here in 2025. So I'm going to say fourth at the very worst for this team.
Right. Connor, your thoughts?
Is there a position higher than one?
Oh my God! Don't eat my word. I hit you with that this afternoon. You're not even like waiting to recycle my content.
Nobody can know that because it's not on air.
Yeah, I got receipts. Don't you worry. I do the editing.
In a more realistic way, I see this team actually coming out red hot out the gates because I think a lot of the team is pretty similar to last year. So they got a little bit of time to play together. They now have an off season to kind of gel a little bit more. There's a couple of new faces that are coming into the starting lineup, but relatively everybody's still here, including Almada, which I think is massive for at least the start of the year. Not to mention, we also don't have CCL. So we've seen what CCL can do to teams at the start of the season. It's a really hard juggling match between being competitive in that competition and trying to still be competitive at the start of the MLS season. Yeah. So not having that, I think, gives us even more of an advantage at the start of the year. So I see us doing really well the first half. And then I think Almada's almost surely going to be gone in the summer. So while I don't think we're just going to completely fall off, I still think there's way too much talent around this team. And I'd imagine the organization probably is going to have a plan in place for when he's gone. I doubt they're just going to be like, all right, that's it. Almada's gone, which just cross our fingers and hope things work out. But I imagine there's probably still going to be a little bit of growing pains with him gone, trying to figure out something new and trying to figure out if there's somebody who can kind of fill his role in the team. So I think with that in mind, I think we're finishing somewhere between maybe third and sixth in the table, which the optimistic side of me thinks it's definitely higher on that range. And honestly, the realistic side of me kind of feels that way too. I feel really good about the roster going into the year. And I want to be optimistic about the team. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. But even if it was fifth or sixth, I think I'd still be pretty happy with that season. I definitely just want us to be in the mix again in the playoffs. So yeah, that's just kind of my outlook on the season.
I am banking on the fact that, and I'm going to talk about your breakout player, Connor, that if and when Almada leaves, I think Firmino steps in and continues to be very, very strong. Maybe not, of course, not at Almada's level, but enough to keep them punching where they're supposed to be. I think your wing play is strong. The defenders are kind of, unproven is the term I'm going to use in terms of defending, and we don't know what the goalkeeper situation. I do think this is a team that realistically could finish top four. There are teams I like better. So I'm thinking somewhere 3 to 4, maybe 5 if things go really, really wrong. So I'm kind of with you there, Connor. So looks like we're all kind of on the same page there in terms of the way that we We think this is going to end. So now the only thing to do is to watch the season play out. Sydney, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to out of your very busy schedule to come chat with us. It was tons of fun. I know Connor really enjoyed it.
I did very much.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me. And if you're in Atlanta, let me know. Let's hang out.
It's on our list for sure.
Yeah, 100%. That's a bucket list item for me to get down there at some point.
Yeah, let me know.
Heck yeah. So before we run off, we do want to let you take a little bit of time to tell people where to find you if they're not following you already. So plug away, drop those socials.
Yeah, of course. You can follow our podcast at Scarves, the letter N, Spikes, at Scarves and Spikes. We're obviously Scarves and Spikes, but that username was taken on that, so we had to settle for the letter N. YouTube, just search for Scarves and Spikes. We're pretty easy to find. Instagram, Scarves and Spikes. Also, scarvesandspikes.com. There's some content on there as well for you all to check out about Atlanta United. A lot of great things planned for the podcast. Myself, Tyler, Tommy co-host that. A lot of great things we have planned in 2024. And yeah, if you look for Atlanta United news and insight, definitely check us out. We're on live every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Podcast you can download from Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that good stuff. So yeah.
Yep. Make sure you guys go check them out. They're actually about to drop an interview with Tyler Wolf, somebody that we just had a quick conversation about. So they do some really good content. So make sure you go over there, give them some love. Sydney, thank you so much again for joining us for this segment. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you're following and subscribing so you can see the next one that comes out, which will be later today if you're listening to this as it is released. And thank you guys so much for being here, and we hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.